So one of the things I love to do is to scrape data off the internet. And I've got a bunch of data here. I'm not going to go. That's a whole nother video on how to go about this. There's lots of tools out there that will give you data or you can use to get data. But I like to scrape data because I like to find out stuff about. In this particular case, we're looking at some reviews. So I got an example here. This is just the distribution reviews for a particular client, for a customer we were looking at. And this is nothing, exciting. You can see this on Google, but I like to dig into the data. I like to moonlight sometimes as a data scientist. I'm not a data scientist, but I like to find out this stuff. And there's some tools out there today that make this really quite easy to do. So just a couple examples here. So here's the for this one customer, we were looking at some of their reviews on their Google profile. This is their distribution. This is sort of their reviews over time. And so we would look at this and have conversations with the client about, what's working, what's not working. And obviously we're seeing a lot of negative reviews. And so this is a really great use case for something like ChatGPT, where we can go in and categorize all of those negative reviews, something the client might understand intuitively if they're managing this. But also then we can sort of look at that over time and get a scorecard of like, what are we doing better? What could we be doing better? So on and so forth. So that's one example. Today, we're going to look at reviews from competitors, reviews from our competitors. And today we're working in the e-commerce space. So we're going to have a look at some of this data. And the question that we're trying to find out is what are these competitors doing well, and what are they doing poorly? Is a bit of a competitive analysis to try and find out, what kind of advantage our client can bake into their business, or how they can strategically start to maneuver what they're doing to gain a bit of a competitive advantage. We've got a bunch of reviews that I've already scraped off the internet. I'm not going to go into scraping these today. There's lots of tools out there that'll you can just plug in some stuff and it'll spit out some data for you. What I want to do today is I want to get into this, and how quickly can we get into this data and start looking at it from a meaningful way. So first of all, I want to understand what this looks like. If you're in kind of software, you do any kind of deving or any of that kind of stuff, you may recognize I'm using a tool called Cursor, which is based off of another dev tool called VS Code. You don't have to use Cursor. I'm going to use it because it has nice AI features built in. You can do this with the free tool VS Code and just like ChatGPT or Claude or something like that to give you some of the code. But what I want to demonstrate today is that I'm a software engineer, but I'm not a data scientist. But I'm going to use data science tools to sort of tie into some of this data and play with it a little bit. And I'm not even going to write any of the code. We're just going to get AI to do a lot of the work for us. And for me in particular, this is a really great use case for AI because I'm not building a system on a team that needs to go into production and needs maintenance and all these different things, where the code coming out of an AI model may or may not fit in with the rest of the code base or be kind of questionable. This is sort of like single use. I'm going to write this once, I'm going to run it, and then I'm kind of done with it. So I don't really care about the code quality. I don't really care about the reusability so much. I could, in theory, turn this into something that could be reused over time, but mostly I don't care because I'm just going to put this together fairly quickly. And once I'm done with it, I'm kind of done. So anyway, if you want to follow along or try this out, this is just sort of to demonstrate how easy it is to get into some of this stuff. So I'm using Cursor. It is a paid subscription. I think I've used all my credits for this month, but we'll tie into this anyway. So I don't want to operate in this JSON file directly. What I'm going to do is actually create a brand new file. I'm going to hit Command N. I'm on a Mac. You can just go File, New File from here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this in the same folder, and I'm going to call it Reviews. You can call it whatever you want, but the extension is important. I'm going to go IPYNB. IPYNB. That's going to turn this into what is known as a Jupyter Notebook. It used to be called a Python notebook. And the cool thing is that VS Code and Cursor both know how to read and interpret these notebooks natively. So I don't need the Jupyter environment installed or anything. I can just do this directly in Cursor. And so this is pretty fantastic. This is super fun for me. So I am just going to, I need to get Jupyter installed and running. If you're on a Mac, you've already probably got Python installed. But basically, I can just say, I don't know, we'll write a little bit of code here. Print hello. So we're not going to write a ton of code. We're going to get AI to do that for us. But I'm just going to run this because the first thing it's going to do if I hit Shift Enter is it's going to ask me to pick my Python environment or if I have Jupyter installed already. So I'm going to pick my Python environment. I happen to know 396 is what I have installed. So I'm going to pick that one. And then it's going to execute this cell. And these are how notebooks work. Notebooks are basically you can write some code and then you can execute that code and it will give you the output. So this is pretty fantastic. So let's just dive right into this. I'm just going to say I'm going to hit Command K here and it's going to give me this nice little chat box. And I want to open up reviews.json. And I want to data science the file, maybe see how many items there are present. That's just a good start. We'll see what that gives us. If I hit enter to generate that, it's going to spit out some code. Right out of the gate, I see a bunch of Python here. So I'm just going to accept that, and I'm just going to try and run the Shift Enter. So I'm going to get an error right out of the gate because it's going to say no module named pandas. So I know how to fix this, but I can just take this and let's just plug this into a new cell. Hit Command K again. I'll plug this in here. We'll hit Enter and we'll see what it gives us. So this is exactly what the answer is. I'll hit accept on that. And this is saying, well, we need to install Pandas, which is a data science library we're going to use to do some analysis. But it's got this bang at the front because it's going to run this as a command line, a command line command. Instead of being in Python, it's actually going to run it in the command line. So I hit enter on that. And then, oh, it's saying there's no pip on mine. I think mine's going to be pip3 because I have Python 3 installed. So now that's wrapped up. We can see that it's done a bunch of stuff, installed a bunch of stuff. I'm just going to go ahead and move this item here up to the top. One of the points of a notebook is that you can come back to it later on and read what's going on. I'm going to collapse this here. I think I can click on this and make that smaller. So now I know when I come back to this, I need to run this pip3 install pandas, and that'll give me all of this kind of stuff. If you're struggling at this point and you haven't made it this far, YouTube and Google are your friend. If you're struggling with Python or pip or whatever, this should still work on Windows. There should be tutorials for how to get this stuff running on Windows. If you're struggling with this, feel free to ping me. I can always do a tutorial on how to get this running on your different system. I'm on a Mac right now, so it might be a little bit different for you. All right, now when we come back to this, I'm going to run this again. And we can see it's loading the JSON file. It's sticking it into a data frame, and it's saying, all right, there's 4,206 records in this data frame. So one of the cool things, again, I'm not a data scientist, but I do know that once you've got something in a data frame, you can start to do some cool stuff with it. So we can see it's printing out some of this stuff right here, which I don't really care about. So I'm just going to take that out. The part that I do care about is that if you just, in these cells within your notebook, if you just reference this, what this is called a variable, so it's taken stuff this into this data frame and it's assigning it to this variable, and whatever your variable is at the end of your cell is what's going to get displayed. So the thing I like about pandas and the things that makes it so cool is I get a nice little preview of what's in there, so we can see in this table view there's all of these different records. So now this is super fun because I can start to see the shape of the data a little bit. We can see that there's some different fields and stuff in here. So all right, what are we going to do with this? I think right out of the gate, review rating is one of those things that I'm super interested in. So I'm going to go down to my next cell. We'll just collapse this again. I'm going to go down to my next cell and I'm going to get AI involved again. And I want to say, okay, I want to see the distribution of all of the reviews by rating. I'm just going to give it that. I haven't told AI what the shape of the data looks like, what different attributes are available. We'll just give it this for now and see what it does. Now it's making an assumption that there's a rating key on there. If we come back and look at this, we collapse So review underscore rating is going to be the key. So I know right out of the gate that that's not going to work 100% the way I want it to. So I'm going to change that just to give that a chance. Review rating, value count, sort index. And then it's giving me another error. So if I run this right now, I'll accept this change and I'll run this. And it's going to give me another error. And it's saying matplotlib is required. And so I'm pretty sure I can just take this matplotlib. I'm going to go all the way back up to the top. And I'm going to put that right here, and I'm going to run this cell again. I'll let that run. Now that that's finished, I can check these outputs now. It looks like it installed matplotlib. So we'll come back down here, and we'll try and run this frame again. And I can see, here's my distribution now. It's giving me this graph. Now this is beautiful. I've got a little bit of an error here. Name PLT is not defined. I'm just going to pretend I don't know what the issue is here. Here, I'll fix this in chat. How can I fix this? Boy, it's definitely taking its time. Sometimes I've found with AI that it does that. Let's just go import that. Now that just gives us our little graph. So perfect. This is exactly what I want to see. All right, we're starting to data science a little bit. Now we're what, 10 minutes into this, and we've got one graph. We want to do something that's a little bit more interesting. First of all, I don't care about 4s and 5s. There's a lot of 5-star ratings. So we'll come back to this 5-star rating in a bit because I think there's probably some interesting stuff in here. What I'm interested in is the 1, the 2, and the 3. Typically, when in the work that I've done in the past with ratings, I will typically see a distribution between 1 and 5 and not much in the middle. So these 1-star ratings are a little bit lower than I expect, but I think there's some 5-star in here that are skewing the results. When people leave ratings, when people leave reviews on your product, more often than not, they're going to give you a 5-star or a 1-star. There's usually not 2, 3, and 4 in the middle for the most part, but this isn't totally atypical. So what we want to do is, let's see, I want all of the reviews that are a rating of 3 or less. So we'll do that. So that's fairly straightforward. Accept that, run it. So this is giving us everything under 3. Now what I'm interested in is I want to know, based on the review content, can we categorize this in some kind of way? This is the part where AI comes in, and this is the part where it gets really interesting. I just want to take and look at, I'm going to take the reviews. So with all of those were assigned from that data frame. It's grabbed all of the reviews and stuffed them into a variable called low ratings. So what we're going to do is I just want to have a look at the first one. So can you print out the first item in the low ratings variable? Again, I'm just pretending I don't know how to write any code, and so I'm just going to get ChatGPT or getting the cursor to do this for me. So we'll run this, Shift Enter. All right, so this is what we've got. This is the company name. It's telling us some details about their. Looks like it represents that graph we just sort of built up. The thing I'm interested in here is actually these two fields. I'm interested in the review title, and I'm interested in the review content. So actually what I want to do, let's just grab this now that we know what that looks like. Let's go down to the next cell. And I actually want to look at that. I think it was the review title, right? Yeah. So I think we can just go review title. So that's that there. And then if we put this in here, we can go review content. This is what I'm interested in, because if we go back and have another look at this graph, this is the thing that I found about reviews after having scraped a bunch, is that these people over here in the 5-star reviews, they're ecstatic. They're giving you an amazing review. And I said before, people either give you 5 stars or they give you 1 stars. I typically, if you just do analysis on enough reviews, like there isn't usually much in the middle. Thoughtful people will give you 3 or 4 stars, or I guess maybe 2, but like it's usually 1 star or 5. And if somebody goes out of their way to give you a 1-star review, they're usually raving mad. They're usually really, really upset with you. And there's a huge amount of insight in this, I think, for businesses, especially if you're not paying attention to this, or if you're new in an industry, you can just look at all of your competitors and go and have a look at their reviews. And there's some really interesting data in there. So this is what I want to find out. So let's do this. Let's go. I want to get all of the, no, actually, let's back up. I want, how many items are there in the low ratings list? So if we run this now, 628, I think it told us that before. That's fine. So the next challenge here is that we want to go through these items, these 628. I mean, we're going to come back to the high review ones later on, but I want to go through these items, the low rating items, these 628, and I want to start to categorize them. But I don't know what the categories are yet. What I want to do is I want to get a sense of what the content looks like from all of these low ratings reviews. And I want to put it into something like ChatGPT. And I want ChatGPT to tell me, give me 20 categories or 15 or 12 or whatever that looks like. Give me a bunch of categories that will help me represent where these reviews should go, because then we're going to come back and go through all of those and get ChatGPT to categorize those for us. So let's do that now. So first, I think what we want to do is we want to take this low ratings and I want to say, can I just see the content from all of these low ratings reviews? Now what it's going to do is loop over those rows and it's going to grab the review content and spit that out. So that's fine. Let's have a look at that. So it's giving us the review number, review 3, review 4. It's got some kind of index. I think this is exactly the type of content that we want. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take all of this content and we're going to write it to a file. And then we're going to take that file and we're going to put it in ChatGPT and we're going to say, take all of this content and all of these reviews and generate categories for us. Let's do that right now. So we'll grab all of this. Just the same, we've had Cursor create this code for us. We're using the Claude 3.5 Sonnet here. We're going to modify this code now and we're going to say, okay, now we want to collect this information and save it to a file called low reviews content.txt. So we'll accept that and we're going to run this. And if we look, we should now see that there's a low reviews content file. And now we can take this file and stuff it into ChatGPT. Let's do that right now. So I've jumped over here now to ChatGPT. And I'm not going to get super fancy with this. This is just going to be really simple. All right, so I've attached my file, and this is the prompt that I've come up with. Act as a world-class business analyst and take a look at this file. You're going to see a lot of reviews for e-commerce companies. All of these reviews have a rating of 3 stars or less. So all of these customers are not that happy. Your job is to take a look at the content, come up with 15 categories that all of these reviews could be categorized into. If you see a significant number of items that do not fit nicely into the 15 categories, feel free to suggest additional categories. Pay close attention to the data. The categories will be used for sentiment analysis for us to analyze what our competitors are doing poorly and how we can gain a competitive advantage. So let's see what ChatGPT comes up with. All right, based on that, the primary categories, shipping costs, delays, incorrect items, quantity, it's given us 15 and it's actually recommended 4 additional categories. So that gives us 19 in total. So what we want to do now is we want to get this into a format. We're going to use this output. This is great. But we also want to put this into a format that we can use in our code as well. So we're going to tell ChatGPT, okay, I like that. I like the additional categories you've given me. Let's put them in a format that can be used in our Jupyter Notebook, e.g. Python. A list will do. So here's our list right here. So we're going to grab this, copy that code, and with that and our description, we're going to jump back over to our notebook and we'll start to categorize this data with ChatGPT. We're back over here at our notebook. These are our categories, and we just want to lock those in. The cool thing about notebooks is Shift-Enter. It's going to run that. The variables from the previous cells, so categories, is now available in the next cell. So if I say categories and I just run this, it knows that those exist, which is pretty fantastic. So now what we're going to do is we're going to say we want to call the OpenAI API. We'll say for each of the review items, we're going to pass in the title and the content from the review and give ChatGPT instructions that it needs to categorize each of the items based on the category list. All it needs to do is return the category, nothing else. All right, let's see what that gives us. So that looks like code, good enough to me. As I can see OpenAI, there's a pretty good chance right out of the gate that we're going to need to install this. So I'm going to grab that, run all the way back up to the top, put that in my list, Shift Enter, let that run as it installs OpenAI. Looks like that's completed. Now I'll come back down to my cell. The other thing I know right out of the gate is that I'm going to need, if I just try and run this right now, it's going to complain because there's no API key. The API key client must be set either by passing in the client or setting the open API key environment variable. So this is one of those things where we need to be aware of a couple of things here. We are talking to the OpenAI, or the ChatGPT, if you will, API. And so in order to do this, you have to have an API account with them. You can just go to OpenAI Developer, set up an account. But since we're going to be using the API, we also need to have a credit card in there because it's not going to cost very much to do this. We're going to run, I think if we run 6,000, so we're going to do 600. So that's going to be probably like 60 cents or something. It's not going to cost us a lot of money to run this through, but we do need to have an account. We do need to have an API key. So I'm going to set this up right now. The way I would typically do this, there's probably, fancier ways to do this. I tend to sort of do this the exact same way every time, just to keep it fairly simple. All of this code lives locally on my computer. I don't share it anywhere, so I don't worry about it. But for the sake of the video, I'm going to put this in here, and then I'm going to drop my my API key. Once I got it, is going to go right here, and I'll leave it in this secrets.txt. So the way I will do this typically is I will just push the secret into the environment, and I'll do it like this. We'll tell the cursor here, I have a secret in a local file called this. The file is secrets.txt. I would like to extract that variable and set it in the environment under the same name. There's probably simpler ways to do this or fancier ways, but this is the way I'll typically do this. It's just really straightforward. I'm going to take 1 second here, because if I run this right now, it's going to run 600 times. So I actually want to modify this code, modify the code to only run for the first 5 items and print out the category that we get back from ChatGPT. So now it's just going to grab the first 5. It's going to spit out the category. And here I can see at the end, it's appending the category as a new column, which is fine. We'll leave that alone. Run this. It looks like it's working. Shipping cost, customer service, product quality, incorrect items. Now we have a warning here. A value is trying to be set on a copy of a data frame. Let's just paste that back into, we'll just grab all that. Command K again. I get this warning. Can you fix it? Again, this is fantastic for me because I do know Python. I've worked with Python lots over the years, but I'm not a data scientist. So when it comes to some of the graphing that we're going to do, and again, setting up code to do the API stuff, this is something that ChatGPT does, or sorry, that Cursor does really well. We're using Claude right now. AI is really great for this because it's just using boilerplate code. Again, it's sort of single purpose. Now let's run this again. Shipping cost, customer service rudeness, product quality, incorrect items. So it seems like it's getting those fine again. So I'll let it run for all 600 of these categories. And then once we've got that done, we'll save it back to a file, and then we'll start doing some data analysis on this. All right, easy peasy. 15 minutes later, we've got a bunch of data to play with. So ChatGPT has gone through and categorized all of our complaints into categories. And what I want to do next, scroll through here now, somewhere in here, probably at the very end, complaint category, right there. Perfect. Okay. So what we want to do is, I don't want to have to run this again. So the first thing I'm going to do is say, now that we've enriched data with the category, I want to dump this back out to a new file just so I don't have to process it again. All right, so we'll let that run. Low ratings with categories.csv, that works for me. Except can we make it a JSON file just for consistency? Yep, that works. So we'll accept that, spit it out to a file. Now that we've got low ratings, we're basically at the punchline, at least for today. Now we get to come in and do the fun part. Okay, can you show me a graph of the low ratings based on the rating category? This is the part that I want to see. It's going to do some plotting. I remember when I was first learning Matplotlib and some of this stuff, I would read documentation for hours just trying to get some of this charts and stuff to work. And so this has been a real boon for me working with AI and Cursor and ChatGPT to generate some of this code. So we can see out of all of these categories, shipping delays is highest on the list. Out of 600, I'm going to take a guess and say that's about a quarter. Just about a quarter of all of the issues. So we've got shipping delays, incorrect categories, price concerns, so on and so forth. And so now this is the fun part, because from here we can start to dive into some of these categories and we can say, okay, based on this category, can you make recommendations about something for our particular product that we can do better in order to outperform the competitor in this particular way? Or on the flip side, when we go to those 4 and 5 star ratings, now we can plug those in and do some analysis on those and say, okay, I know all of these customers are happy with the competitor. They've given them a 4 or 5 star rating, but analyze each and every one of these to see if there's a spot in there where the customer said, it would be better if they did this, or I wish it did that, and look for opportunities or commonalities in there. This is a really great use case for using AI in your business, or using AI for doing some sentiment analysis, where we just want to gain a little bit more insight into something. And if you got a whole bunch of data, I really like to do this. Again, it's super cheap. It probably costs us about 50 cents to run all that through ChatGPT and just enrich all of those categories. And then from here, we can go even deeper down the rabbit hole, start to get deeper into some of these categories and start asking more meaningful questions now that we're starting to get a little bit of insight into the data. So I just wanted to share that with you today. I hope you found that interesting. Make sure that you're following along on the various different social channels, and we'll catch you on the next one.